let's get started. So this is the final week 5 of the Festival of Flourishing, and I'm just a little bit sad, but I'm also super, super excited to wrap up with our guest today, Tammy Bart, who I will do a proper intro to in just a second. But for those of you who have not been here from the very beginning, either in the room or joining us on video afterwards for the recording, because I know it's not always easy to get to a Friday afternoon session. What are we doing and why are we doing it? Well, when we talk to groups in doing our workshops and our trainings around some of the things that we can do for ourselves to manage mental health in a kind of positive preventative way, as opposed to kind of responding to crisis, reflection's one of the really simple, really high value tools that we quite often bypass because it's just really hard to prioritize and make time. So what we wanted to do as a part of the festival is to kind of walk the talk a little bit, make space for people to kind of step back from their week and do that reflection together in community, and along the way to talk to an expert. And so today's expert I am super excited to introduce you to. Her name is Tammy Bart, and she is a proud Darug woman of the Burra clan. She's an award-winning educational leader, so her background is in leadership in the education sector, but she works with everyone now, lucky for us. And she's also the founder of Black Ignited, which is a purpose-driven consultancy that ignites human potential through honouring culture, reclaiming identity, and transforming systems. And each week I kick off and I say, there's all kinds of ways of looking at evidence, and I come from the Western tradition, that's the way I approach it, but there are other ways of looking at well-being which are really backed by thousands of years of evidence in Indigenous knowledge systems, and that is why I'm super excited to hear from Tammy today. So today I'm not going to do the acknowledgement. Cheers. Over to you.
All right, Warmy, let me just share my screen and then we'll get going. All right, are you seeing that all right?
Yeah.
Perfect. So Warmi, or hello, Naya Tammy Bart, Naya Bro Brongo Darag Norawa. So I'm Tammy Bart, as beautiful Helen said, from Buru Borongo clan in the Darug Nation. So for those of you who don't know where that is, that's in Warrain, which is the traditional name for Sydney. And so we sort of go out from Greater Sydney area right up to the Blue Mountains. That's Darug Nora, Darug country. So let me start by acknowledgement. I'm going to go and do that through my own language, which is Darug Dalang, and you can feel free to follow along in the English, which is in the white. Sanalawa ji yanga yago Darug Norawa. Ya Bayojo Budre Yagara Torobo Yoregu. Bayojo Budre Darug Yoregu. Bayojo Budre Warangadugu Baranin Baragu. Bayajo Budre, Wagogo, Yorago, Norago, Bayajunya, Budre, Yinyam Yago, Didrigo. So we are all standing today on country. I speak well of the Yagara and the Turrbal people. I also speak well of my people, the Darug people, and I speak well of elders from yesterday to tomorrow. I speak well of First Peoples and their homelands right across the globe as I commonly work, and I speak well of you here today. And Didri Gore or Yanima Budri Gumarada, which is walk with good spirit. Oh, thank you. So today I am going to talk to you a little bit around personal governance. A little backstory was that obviously I've done lots of different leadership courses and programs along my way, and health and well-being, and in particular mental health and how to make sure that I am the strongest that I can be has always been on the agenda. But what I found was that there was lacking this understanding of culture or Indigenous ways embedded in this. And for all my learnings and being growled at many times as a recovering perfectionist, this is just, I guess, the short, sharp, condensed version of what that looks like. And it's the things that I wish I knew, but had to, I guess, experience a catalyst before I did anything to really change. So it might be a little bit of a contrast to what you've seen and heard before in terms of the Western learnings or the Eurocentric ways, but it's just a different perspective, and hopefully you'll get a little bit out of it. So personal governance, first and foremost, um, is really our inner compass, right? And for me, what I've tried to do is I guess put that in the context of country, and that is um, the Seven Sisters, and each star represents something special that really does help us shape the way we walk, think, do in the world, and how we make decisions. And so it's about highlighting that. And Kamaragu, Gorang is the place of the ancestors in our language, and we always know that we're part of something bigger. And I guess that's that mental health perspective of understanding the difference between awe and wonder, and where we sort of fit in the world, and how, for us, we know that every step we take today impacts 7 generations into the future. So there's that awe and wonder in itself. And so, what do we do today? To make sure that we're walking with good spirit, that we are walking forward and treading lightly as we progress. So, what are these seven sisters, other than a star constellation in Sky Country? But in this personal governance framework, this is what each one of them represents. And we're going to focus a little bit on the identity aspect today because we don't spend enough time in that space. And it's all about who I think I am. And, I'm so glad Helen spoke about reflection and that introspection that's needed, because when we prioritize that and we make time to really get uncomfortable in that space to dig into who we are and what we stand for, then we do find out who we are at a whole nother level when we lean in. So, identity for us as Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, and I'm going to give you a very, I guess, broad overview, but every clan, every nation will have some particular nuances that are relative just to them and their own cultural protocols and laws. But in terms of the learnings and teachings that I've been given, this is what identity is about. It's about knowing who you are and how that shapes the way we walk in the world. And it's about recognizing that our choices, our responsibilities, and our leadership all play a role within our community and have an impact on country. So, identity is more than just what you do, which is what we seem to very easily attach ourselves to from a Western lens. So, I'm Tammy Bart, I'm the owner of Black Ignited. That cringes me when people introduce themselves like that. And I used to do that, right? So it's about, from an Indigenous lens, who are you, as in what's your name, who's your mob, and where you're from. So straight away, you're grounding yourself in country. And then you lean into what is it that you stand for? And that starts to really dive into the identity piece. And this is what we start to touch on here, where it's, what's your lived experience? What values do you bring? What is it about your culture that makes you unique and special in who you are? Whose are you? So I know that I'm very fortunate that I am the descendant of Maria Locke, which is the daughter of Yarramundi. And Yarramundi is the first contact with Captain Arthur Phillip. So I know that my ancestor was the first to try to make peace, to make conversation around walking forward together. I also know that his daughter Maria was the first Indigenous woman to be put into an educational institution, a school. And so it is really important that I know those stories and carry those stories with me, because it forms a piece of identity. It forms a piece of why am I here and what I'm meant to do, and who do I carry with me, and what are their teachings that live within my DNA. It's also about what I carry in my kulamong, my basket, around my totems. So I know that I'm Buru Borongal clan, which is the Buru, meaning kangaroo, and Buru Borongal is based out in the Richmond area of Sydney, and the people of the red kangaroo. So I know that my cultural responsibility is also about looking after kangaroos, making sure that their ecosystem is as full as it can be and they have everything they need, because we know that we're part of a complex web. I also know that I can't wear or eat kangaroo. And so that's really important to understand what our totem is, because if we do that, then we get sick. And so it's about understanding those truths and what impact they have in how we walk each and every day. It's also about knowing that, my personal totem is the eagle. And so that I'm often reminded about elevating my view, not being stuck and narrow-minded. It's about understanding that there are many feathered friends and other insects that I rely upon to maintain my strength. And so it's those things that help shape my identity. It's also about the responsibilities. And from a cultural point of view, some of those responsibilities are to make sure that we continue to be the oldest living civilization. That me being the first individual in my family to be born a human being because of 1967 referendum, my mother, my grandmother, and all of my previous ancestors were not considered human. So it's about my responsibility to re-educate my children around our culture, but also my mother as well, who's thankfully still here. And so with all of this, it's like, well, where do I belong? Where do I call home? What is my country? And while I live off country, I do know that I have a strong connection to Yarramundi, which is also not only the name of my ancestor, but the place at the foot of the Blue Mountains, where it is a meeting place for our clans. And I think being very lucky and grateful that I have been able to be there and stand in that presence, stand along the river, um, to speak my language on my country, on my Nora. So it's these little things that we sort of need to understand and know what fills our bucket, what drips from our bucket, and what we're able to carry with us each and every day. So, why is all of this important? And I know that I've spoken about the blackfellow view, for a better way of saying it, but this is really a way of being that anybody can take on board. It is about knowing whose you are and their stories of those who have come with you, and whose shoulders you stand on that have been great matriarchs, for example, because that's the inner flame that burns inside of each and every one of us. Now, that identity, then, if it's kept burning and it's kept strong, then we can make decisions with whole heart, with our alignment of our heads, our hearts, and our stomach. And our stomach is where we as Indigenous people feel. And so it's about making that connection, making sure that it is a nice, strong little road that goes between it. And that when that is the case, we do get to make decisions that are in alignment and grounded in our knowing. It's also about, I think, as an entrepreneur and a business owner and a change maker, and this is shout out to all of those individuals in the room, it's about knowing these elements of our own story and aligning that to our daily life, professionally as well. And I'll speak a little bit more about that shortly. And like I said, identity is not an individual thing or just an individual thing. It's a collective, it's relational. So when I know who I am and my sister or my brother shows up beside me, and we gather as a community and we each know who we are, then we as a community are strong. And so it's about making sure that we have that collective determination, not the individual. So, what is this thing that I'm talking about when I talk about relational? It's about knowing my kinship, my family ties. And so I've spoken about my connections there. It's about knowing country and place and where you're from and how that shapes who you are. So it's not just good enough to know the answer, but it's to go deeper and go, what is the sensory that comes with that? How then can I evoke those senses when I may be on country, when I may not be on country, because it lives within us. It's about knowing those ancestors, those who have walked before you, and for us, we also believe in those who are yet to come. So when we make decisions today, and hopefully we're in alignment when we make these decisions, it's about knowing that that impacts 7 generations in the future. And so we're making decisions for our children's 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 children. They carry our DNA with them. So let's make sure that that DNA is strong and rich and flowing. And so there are some questions there that you can answer. Am I honoring those who have carried me here and those that I will strengthen the path for? Totems, law. Now, you don't necessarily have to have a totem, but you can be definitely drawn to something and some animal behaviors or plant or something that you just connect with. And it's about knowing what that is and enriching your whole body and spirit in that. And then the last one is around that collectiveness that I spoke of just before. So some questions for you. These were in the wonderful graphic that Helen put together, so you can sort of see them in a different way. And the reason I've got the fingerprint there is because each fingerprint is 100% totally different. It is individual, it is unique, and each one of us and our souls are exactly the same. And it evolves over time. Just as you grow and stretch, so do your fingerprints. And while they maintain the same core, it just looks different in dimension. So, final few little things from me is around aligning to that professional work, because usually in a Western world we keep them very separate, and that's disconnection is what leads us to disease and ill health and all sorts of horrible things that we want to avoid. And so it's about bringing in the knowledge of who you are and what ways of being that you come and what you value each and every day into your business. So if I value relationality, how do I walk that every single day in my business? Well, we have the personal check-ins. I check in with my clients from a personal point of view, but not just the professional. It is about giving them a phone call, understanding how they work. It's about listening deeply, not just hearing, right? And so there's lots of different ways and things that we could go into, but it's about making sure that you're not having to be someone else outside of knowing who you are in other environments. So knowing who you are, what you stand for, whose you are, where you come from, all of these things ground you. It shapes the way you lead each and every day. And here's the thing, our bubs, our children, are constantly watching, as there are many adults as well. They may not say anything, but they are constantly there and in tune. And so it's important to know how you're showing up and how you're walking the world each and every day. And if you wanted to sort of have a little bit of extra visual around what does this look like, here's this spiral. And it's a spiral because you start and then you have to go deeper and deeper and deeper. And the braver and more courageous you are, the more quality of understanding around your identity you will get. And the last one I'll leave you with is, who do you walk for? Because that's a big shaper in what we do and the way we see the world as Indigenous peoples. So didgeridoo, I know that we had some time for questions and answers, and I wanted to make sure we left enough for that. I will just stop sharing, Helen.
10 out of 10 for timing, Tammy. Well done.
I was very conscious. Yeah.
That was so great. Thank you so much. Every time I hear you speak, the parallels between what we know from the research increasingly are just pointing back to all the stuff that we've always had a language for. It's just a different language. So thank
Yeah,
you
and that's the thing.
again.
Indigenous ways is just a different path. It's not wrong, it's not right, it's just different. And whatever it is that you connect with, like for us, it is our ways of knowing, being, and thinking and doing. And, if it can help somebody else, then what a beautiful gift that we can provide.
Indeed. Indeed. Well, speaking of gifts, if there are questions from Beck or Denora, we seem to have now two Denoras. Hi, both of you. I know the whole registration thing has been a little bit challenging. We'll do better next time. If you've got questions, though, for Tammy, please step up.
I have a question.
Sure.
Tammy, would you speak to perhaps what blocks someone from properly connecting to their identity? You know, yeah, I guess I'll just stop there with that for my question.
Yeah, so I can speak from my own personal perspective and the stories I have permission to share. We often armor up because we feel unsafe to be ourselves. Now, I guess there's two parts of that. The first part is we may not have done the work yet around what it is we need, or we do know what we need, but we don't necessarily have the voice or the agency to ask for it. They're the two in my experience. The more work you've done, the easier it is to ask because you have that shared understanding and that clarity. And in spaces where I haven't had to code switch or I could bring my full self, they are in spaces who people get me. And we know, you can feel that, right? So it's about, I've always say it always starts with self, right? If you know who you are and what it is you need to feel safe, to feel valued, to feel seen and heard, then you can always create those spaces yourself, number one, and you attract people into that, or you can ask for it. And what's the worst that's going to happen? Say no, and then you're like, well, this is not my space. That's okay. At least I know now. Rather than wait for, the catastrophe or the negative experience or something that doesn't align, right? I hope that makes sense.
Oh, it does. Thank you.
I'd maybe just add one thing to that, Tammy, and I know you've covered this in past conversations, but the no right now doesn't necessarily mean no forever either. Like I think you can just the impact of asking sometimes can start to shift things as well.
Absolutely. And I experienced that a lot in, an Indigenous space in particular, because people are all on their very different journeys, cultural journeys I'm referring to. And we are all products of our lived experience, right? We're the sum of that. And so through no fault of some people's experience, they've never been exposed to Indigenous culture. And so the no right now, or I need this in order to feel safe, for example, really does set off a catalyst or tool or vehicle for change sometimes. And people will come back and they go, I get it now. What if I did this? Or even approach things with I always say in my cultural intelligence workshops and whatnot, it's not if you do the wrong thing, it's when, right? And so they've come back, they've realized the when that they've done this, and they've gone, what do you need? And what does that look like for you? And what does it look like, feel like, and sound like? I think we don't spend enough space in those three things in every environment enough, because if we broke it down into the nitty gritty, then we do have a greater shared understanding. And the no right now part might be, I can give you XYZ now, but this is going to take a bit more work. And at least you understand that, right? You're walking together on an experience. You're having that balance of power and, I guess, equality.
Awesome. Thank you. Other questions for Tammy? One of the things that I was wondering, Tammy, as I was looking at your reflection questions was we're very good at rights, I think, in Western culture. So we've talked a little bit just now about what we need, but we're quite good at defending what we think we have a right to. And we're clear about responsibilities when it comes to family and to work, I think. But responsibilities beyond that are a little bit unfamiliar, maybe in Western culture. And I wondered if you could, given that what we're working with here is people quite often who are feeling already overwhelmed, the idea that they've got yet more responsibility can feel a little bit too much. What would you recommend in that space? Like, how can that help you cut through to a place where you can feel better as opposed to feel like more work to do?
Yeah, look, it's not another thing. I want to really, concrete that in, because we don't need any more things. I think it's more about connecting deeper into what you already know. So, let's say, for example, cultural responsibility. Like, I know as an Indigenous person that I have a role to play in keeping my culture strong. And what does that look like? Well, it's about alignment between my work, for example, and the way I work and how I show up from a presence point of view, so that people can lean in and get on board and make it, digestible, for a better word. When we think outside of the cultural responsibilities, I guess it comes down to belief in something bigger or greater. The word that's coming to me is faith, but it's not a religious thing by any stretch. It's a notion of spirituality, that we are about a part of something much greater. And it's just understanding that if we look after ourselves and our little world in the best ways possible and walk with good ways, as we say, then everybody else does the same, and all of a sudden we've made quite a big impact. So start small, start within self, start understanding what it is you can bring and how you can shape your world to be the most flourishing. And maybe that is to take a pause, to set out on country and to really connect and listen. And I say listen as in, we have this concept, the Diri, which is Annie Miriam Rose, I guess, made it quite popular a few years ago when she won the Senior Australian of the Year, I think it was at the time. But it's this concept of deep listening to country in particular. And in essence, you could say it's a meditation, but it's so much more than that. It's about listening to the words and the thoughts that are really deep within us that we often just squash down, right? And in squashing that down, we become out of alignment. We end up taking on board extra things that aren't ours to carry. So it's more about taking the moment, deeply listening to what's within and what do you know, and then letting go some stuff that you don't actually have the responsibility for. It's not about more, it's actually about less, but doing what you've got really well.
Awesome. That is just a beautiful articulation. Thank you, Tammy. It's really cool. And so very aligned with the work that we're doing, as I said, just with a different language, a different kind of framework around it. So I want to thank you again. I'm going to move now into the final piece of the final reflection session for our Festival of Flourishing. So I'm going to flash up all of Tammy's details again for anyone who wants to grab her LinkedIn, Black Ignited website, or her Instagram account. They are all good value, so please grab those now. And then for those of you who only joined to chat with Tammy, I'll give you an opportunity to hop off. Otherwise, we are going to jump into that structured reflection that we've been doing each week. So for everyone who may have missed the workshop that we did right at the beginning of the month to give you an orientation to this canvas we've been using, We have been talking about over the course of the week the things that cause you good stress versus bad stress, which we covered in week one, the things that are sources of good recovery, and some of the things we might be doing that are bad recovery, we covered in week two, how you know you're in each of those quadrants, tuning into those feelings that Tammy's just been talking about, like actually concretely, where am I right now? Is the diamond in the middle, those pink triangles, the grey one? And then, so that was week three. And then week four last week, we were talking about the systems elements that kind of pull you in the wrong direction and pull you in the right direction. So a lot of what we've just been talking about has to do with the cultural environment and our, exactly as Tammy said, our relational identity. So what is it that puts us into a frame of mind that brings us towards the left, that pulls us constantly into bad stress and bad recovery because we're trying to distract ourselves, or pulls us in the right direction where we're really able to engage with challenges that are meaningful to us, to get into good stress and to do meaningful activities with our friends and family, which are really guaranteed to get us into good recovery. So that's how it fits together for me, just to do a little kind of integration across what Tammy's just been talking about and what we've been talking about all month. But I think there is just value in stepping back from these pieces of the puzzle, because I think that's what Western science is super good at, is just taking it all apart and looking at each of the individual pieces. Indigenous systems of knowledge are terrific at just stepping back and going, all right, yes, that's very complicated. Thanks very much. But actually, what's very important is we take the relationships that we have with our people and our places really seriously. So what I'd like to do is give you 5 or 10 minutes just to step back. If you've had the opportunity to do these exercises through the month, to step back and have a look at what you've already done. If you haven't, no worries. Have a think about what's been going on for you, perhaps just over the last week or so, and maybe just use that lens that Tammy's just shared, which is this is not just you on your own doing this, although that tends to be the way we talk about it. This is you doing this in concert with this community, which is quite small but growing, with the people who are important to you, and also with the people who you came from and the people who you are influencing down the track. So I'll leave you to it. Naveen, I think, has put the link to, if you want to use this canvas, he's put a link to the canvas in the chat. We'll put on some music and give you 5 minutes to just consider. let everyone go. Can you hear all the children outside? It's Halloween trick-or-treating happening. Yeah, it's not very calming, but the music is. Anyone want to volunteer any observations from the reflection?
I will just say that some of the things that you brought up there, Tammy, are surprisingly, perhaps not so surprisingly, but surprisingly to me anyway, extremely relevant to this particular time in my life. And yeah, that really um, I've worked with this canvas a few times, and I really appreciate being reminded that asking for what you need to feel safe is the work, so to speak. That's what came up for me. It's not easy. It's not simple, but it's the point.
Yeah, absolutely. It's certainly not simple, right? If it was, everybody'd be asking for what they need all the time. Yeah, no. And it reminded me when you were just talking, as well as looking at this visual, what's one of those things I need? I need reciprocity. If not, it feels like extraction or transaction in relationship or connection, and how that's something that forms part of my identity, So, yeah, two ways, right back at you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks again, Tammy. That's been awesome. Hey, just conscious that we are almost at 5:15, so I want everyone to get away to their Friday evenings or afternoons or wherever you are in the world, whatever comes next. So usually the next piece of the puzzle is we just think about what you just need to leave behind during the week. We just compost it, throw it on the compost heap, close the curtains on everything else, stuff that you're going to have to come back to next week, but we don't want to be distracted by on the weekend, and throw a few things on the trophy shelf. We have run out of time for those parts of the puzzle, so I'll just leave you with one final thought, which is exactly as Tammy said, everything we do individually affects everybody else around us. So I wish you happy rippling out on over the weekend, wherever you are in the world. And hopefully we will see you back again for the next festival, but we'll obviously be keeping in touch in the meantime. Thanks, everyone. It was lovely to see you. Have great weekends.
Didrigo, thank you.
Thank you.